Hi, it's Robert Mendelson, Fractional CMO here in beautiful Montreal, welcoming you to another episode of the Fractional Pros Canada podcast. We're part of Fractional Pros Canada, the home for Canada's fractional community, and you can find us on Facebook. We bring you conversations about everything fractional that matters, for fractional executives and businesses from coast to coast. Think of this as your go-to spot for real talk, practical wisdom, and strategies you can actually use, all without the corporate fluff and with plenty of Canadian content. Whether you're a fractional pro or a business in our great country of Canada and beyond, this conversation is for you. Grab your espresso and let's dive in. Welcome to the Fractional Pros Canada podcast. I'm your host and fractional CMO, Robert Mendelson, here in beautiful snowy Montreal. They say that everyone is a salesperson, even if it's not in your job title. Whether you're pitching a new idea, negotiating with a partner, or just trying to get your kids to eat their vegetables, we're all selling. You've probably heard of Sandler Training. Founded back in 1967, they're a global leader in sales and leadership training, known for their counterintuitive, psychology-based approach, moving beyond the old always be closing model, ABC, which makes me think of Glengarry Glen Ross, the ultimate sales classic movie, to focus on mutual trust and surfacing a prospect's true needs. And joining us today, also in Montreal, actually in Laval, is Max Béland, president and owner of his own Sandler Training franchise. He is a 25-year sales veteran and entrepreneur who helps leaders communicate with conviction and close more business. Today's Fractional Pros Canada podcast is powered by Cup of Joe. You can catch Cup of Joe with me and my fractional partner in crime, Joe Frost, live on LinkedIn every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern. You can just go to LinkedIn, check my posts. You'll see at least one of them from the last week about the latest episode of Cup of Joe. I encourage you to tune in. Joe and I are currently working our way through breaking down the 5 distractions of fractionals. So grab your coffee and join me and Joe on Cup of Joe. And Max, welcome to the Fractional Pros Canada pod.
Thank you, Robert. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thank you for being here. So I want to start with a question that's maybe a little bit personal. So your profile mentions you're a proud husband, father of 3. You believe strongly in discipline. You spend your days teaching the psychology of communication and influence. So I'm curious, how often do you find yourself bringing that work home? So, for example, if you're trying to convince one of your kids to eat their broccoli or do that, household chore, do you ever use the Sandler technique and to help kind of sell them the idea?
Great question, Robert. You know what? It used to work. It doesn't work anymore. But it used to work. There were a time where I could try to persuade my kids to do, the chores, but it's hard now. They see me coming, right?
They see it coming. Well, I mean, so you're not always closing the sale with the kids, it sounds like.
It sounds like that, yeah, unfortunately.
So is there a special, do we need a special Parents Edition Sandler system for this specific target market?
Well, we talk about in sales, well, at least in Sandler, this reverse psychology, right? Reverse selling. So try to, instead of pulling on somebody to do something, you're pushing them away, like just slightly. I think it works with kids sometimes, but the older they get, the more subtle you need to be, right? So it's not about pulling somebody or trying to convince somebody. It's more about pushing them slightly away and see if what we're trying to let them know works in their mind or not, right?
Okay. So let's start with a line that I saw in your LinkedIn profile, and I'll read it in French first, then translate. It's "Tout le monde veut plus de ventes, mais peu sont prêts à changer," which is everyone wants more sales, but few people are ready to change.
Yeah.
So this seems to be the central challenge that you often tackle. And, we've got fractionals listening, we've got business leaders listening, and both groups are always, not always, but very often find themselves in some kind of sales situation. So what's the most common form of resistance that you see, and why do companies get stuck even when they're frustrated with their performance?
Well, that's it, Robert. It's probably change. Change. It's I'm not original here, but nobody wants to change, right? Nobody wants to step out of their comfort zone, right? Everybody under pressure, we always like to come back to what we know because it's comfort. And even though we know it doesn't work or it's not efficient, we don't know what else to do. So we always tend to come back to whatever we're doing. And change is my main, uh, I would say, challenge when working with clients, right? So it's like going to the gym, right? You don't go 2 hours at the gym in January and you're in shape for throughout the year. You need to go back to the gym and try to train and develop develop new programming. Right? So get rid of old habits, old ways of doing things or communicating and reprogramming your mind. And that takes time. So I don't fight with people, but I always need to make sure that you understand, you identify what you're doing wrong or what you want to do different, define it, identify it, and then try to work your way in reprogramming whatever you want to change. So, but like as with kids, because you just mentioned kids, change takes a while sometimes for some people.
Yeah, in your experience, I mean, how long does that change take? And particularly when you go in and do some training in a sales, organization,
Yeah.
how long does it take, or do you offer some kind of tips? Do you actually put it out there and say to them, look, salespeople, I know that what I'm offering you here is a big change from what you've been doing. Here are some tips and ways for you to kind of make that shift. Here's the kind of resistance you can expect from your brain, which is inherently anti-change.
Yeah.
And here's some ways to overcome that. Do you do stuff like that?
I do stuff like that, and it's funny because I had a client this week, or you're working with first meeting with clients, and I always say the same thing, right? Whatever works, don't change. Whatever works, continue doing whatever you think works for you, but try to have an open mind to whatever you want to change, whatever you feel like this doesn't work anymore, right? So I have just this open minds, right? This open mindset, but don't change anything for now, or don't think I'm the guru that knows everything. So that lowers the guard a little bit, right? When, especially if I'm dealing with veterans or seasoned, salespeople. Of course, whatever they do, they probably, a lot of things that they do, they're doing well. But sometimes it's like any athletes, right? Any athletes that at golfing or tennis always try to look for that little thing that would make major difference. That would have a much greater impact. So this is what we're looking for experienced sales people. But I always start with the same philosophy: don't change anything if it works, but try to have an open mindset on whatever you can identify. And if you change slightly a bit, or if you tweak it just a bit, it can bring a major impact on your business, on your results, on your performance.
Yeah, you mentioned golf, and that made me think of, your golf swing, right? A lot of people want to improve their golf swing, and there's so many elements to get it right. And, everything might be right, except maybe the grip just needs to be adjusted. So I guess relating that to the sales process, it's kind of like there's already a sales team who's performing, let's say, well, and they want to perform better. And it sounds like it's kind of like a stop, start, continue exercise. What should we continue doing? What should we stop doing? What should we start doing? And I guess the challenge is probably figuring out which part of the golf swing needs correcting, which part of that sales process that they're using is the part that needs to be improved upon.
Yeah, exactly. And to bring back to golf, right? I try to play golf. I'm not a great golfer, but at least I try. And I can watch Tiger Woods drive balls all day, right? I'm probably going to learn something, but as long as if I don't go to the driving range and drive some balls, I'm not going to understand what I need to change. And if I have a coach behind me that's try to coach me and try to teach me a better way of doing things or holding my club, This is where the shifts occurs, right? Where you see first you identify my grip is not correct. I need to change it, and then you practice on new behaviors or new ways of doing things. So this is what we do. We operate a training center for business people, right? And and I think this is where the difference and improvement occurs, is when you try to bring new ways of doing things in your own business, in your own ways of communicating.
So I'm curious if you're coaching a group of salespeople,
Yeah.
and each person may have a different part of their own process, assuming they're not all following the exact same process, which I imagine with sales and sales organizations is pretty common. There's often salespeople who are kind of doing their own flavor of the same thing. So at the end of the day, everybody's selling a little bit differently. How do you go about, maybe workshopping do you workshop one-on-one with each salesperson to figure out which part of their process they need to fix? And then how would you figure out which part of that process is the one that needs to be improved upon?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's two things we try to differentiate, right? The process meaning the steps from one to whatever, right? From one, I need to talk to you until they become a client. That's the process. That's the step one to whatever. And there's on the other side, there's a system, a selling system. So what we try to do at Sandler is try to identify or well map the sales process. And then on top of that, add a system, a philosophy, a way of a methodology, right? So a way of communicating. And this helps not only understand where there's bottlenecks in your process, let's say between steps 5 and 6, there's a bottleneck in there. It helps identify where's the bottleneck and why it's occurring. And a system makes or gives you the possibility to define their problem and replace it with something different. So there's two things: processes and systems. And every company should map their process, and every company should have a methodology. So everybody, all salespeople, let's say a team of 2 or 22, they all have the same system. They all work or have the same vocabulary. Yeah, they all have their styles and the ways of communicating their strengths and weaknesses. But everybody, works under the same system, the same way of working, same methodology. Same thing with a hockey team or football team. Everybody's talented, but everybody works under the same system. That's why it makes it a great team.
Absolutely. But it also makes me think, on a hockey team, there's always a couple of star players. On a sales team, there's always, 1 or 2 salespeople who just do much better than everybody else. So even if they're all following the same methodology, the same process, there's something in the special secret sauce that 1 or 2 people always have that just somehow they manage to succeed much better than the rest of the team that's also following the same system.
Yeah. And that's great about having a system. It's because it works with strengths and weaknesses. If we talk about disc profile, you have some D styles, right? You have some C style, which is more cerebral, more analytical. But on the opposite side, you have somebody that's more quick, right? The people person. They're good with interaction and bonding and rapport, right? So a good system will take care of that, and we'll make sure that we understand the weaknesses and the strengths, and we leverage on that. That's the quality of having a good selling system. Sandler is one, but there's many systems out there, but a good system will leverage that for sure.
Now, you say your work is not about what you sell, it's about how you sell.
Yeah.
So what's the biggest, most common mistake that you see founders and VPs, who like are overseeing the sales team? What's the biggest mistake they're doing in how they approach sales?
Well, we've been taught in sales to, they say in French, vendre sa salaire, right? Try to go on that stage and try to impress with features and benefits. And unfortunately, people don't buy features and benefits. They don't care about your features and benefits. What they do care though is what problem my problems, and can you solve whatever issues I'm having, right? Is your solution can solve my problems? And this, the common mistake in sales is we go too fast in the solution and not enough in the diagnostic, right? We prescribe too fast. So we tend to, hear some surface pain, surface reasons why my solution might work for you. And too fast, we go in the, okay, let's see how we can solve this problem, right? So we're focused on features and benefits instead of focusing on problems and issues and solutions, because people are basically buying solutions to problems.
Yeah. And that's kind of the consultative sales method, where it's kind of like the 2 ears, 1 mouth, right? You want to listen and understand what the customers or prospects' pain points are before you start throwing solutions at them.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Like being a good doctor. If I can go to the doctor with a knee injury, a knee problem, and I won't get an operation after 10 minutes, right? He's going to ask question, maybe make a higher IR, or anyways, he's going to try to make the right diagnostic before prescribing anything. And in sales, we're too fast. And then what I say to clients is you need to slow down the process to speed up the sale. People need to understand why they should invest in your solution. What problems is it going to solve? And then after, once they quantify their problem and make sure that a solution or status quo is not an option, then the solution makes sense, and then it's the right time to present whatever you need to present.
And by the way, just go back, you mentioned a French expression before, which I think is interesting for those who don't know it. Vendre ta salade is literally translates as sell your salad. Yeah. It's not one of those expressions that translates it all into English. But it's a great expression. I love that expression. So I just wanted to note that. So entrepreneurs, even after learning different techniques, often, as you say, they lose confidence. They don't know which approach to use. It may be very confusing because there's lots of books and tons of resources to read. Everybody's got, a better methodology, a better way to sell. Sandler's philosophy is that communication is the key to success. So how does the Sandler system rebuild that confidence, not with a new trick necessarily, but by maybe fundamentally changing the communication between a seller and a buyer?
Yeah. Well, Sandler's is basically it's a communication model, and we add sales component within that model. So it's not about what you sell, it's about how you sell it, like you mentioned before. So like I said, it all comes back to, am I selling features and benefits, or am I selling a solution to a problem? But if you're selling features and benefit, you don't need a system like ours. Just show up and throw up whatever works for you. Bring some stories and tell why your service or product is amazing, and it probably is. Now, that's your selling process. Now, the buyer process or the buyer journey is something totally different. The buyer journey is not about you. It's about me, buyer. It's about my own needs and solutions and problems. So if you make your sales call about you, the buyer, the seller, if you make the sales calls about the seller, you're not considering the buyer journey. You need to understand how people are making decisions. And people are making decisions emotionally, and then they justify whatever they need to buy rationally after. Because we make decisions emotionally. Think about whatever you bought lately that's significant. Even if it's something super rational, you made an emotional decision, right? It was probably to solve a problem or an issue or something for your company, for yourself. And then this rational brain came along and justified your decision. But the decision was made probably right. So the brain needs to justify everything, most of the time. But so why communication is so important, to answer your question, is we need to focus our conversation on the buyer, on what they need to solve. And that instead of trying to convince, we try to understand and ask the right question and make sure that we're having an honest and transparent conversation. And for that, it's our role as a salesperson to lower the guard and build that environment, that safe environment for a buyer to make an informed decision. So if I'm too fast, too early in the process with features and benefits, it's the ABC Glenn Gary example. We're trying to close you. And every time we're on the opposite side, and we try to get, everybody wants to buy, but we hate one thing. We hate to be sold. So, and if we're on that side of the table, we're protecting ourselves. It's like playing poker. I'm closing. I'm hiding my cards, and I'm making sure that I'm not revealing too much. So if this is what you're feeling in a sales call, and you're a seller, well, probably it puts pressure on you. It puts pressure on your client, and you haven't built that safe environment for the client to make an informed decision. So, like I say to clients, every time you feel pressure, there's something you're doing wrong. You need to back up a bit and rethink about this environment you try to build.
It sounds like what you're saying, at least one of the messages I'm hearing, is the more empathetic you could be towards your buyer, maybe even try to put yourself in their shoes, the more successful you'll be. Do you find that, is there any science that says that a salesperson who has a high EQ is going to probably do better at sales than somebody who doesn't?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. Maybe it is. Maybe because of the way maybe they're gonna ask question. It's gonna be about understanding a need or a problem, and maybe the solution will be better fit. But yeah, I think an EQ will help for sure. I guess build that environment I was talking about, right? That safe environment for a buyer to make the right decision. Good question.
I'm curious when you come into a sales organization, maybe you're brought in by, the VP of sales, maybe you're brought in by the CEO. I would imagine that initially the sales team feels a little bit threatened. Here's this outsider. He doesn't know what we do. We know our business. We know our customers. This guy, we'll be nice and we'll sit here and listen, but we're just going to basically ignore everything he's going to say, right?
Yeah.
I would assume you encounter that. A lot of salespeople are very defensive with that kind of thing. So what do you do to kind of break down that barrier and get them to buy in and be open to what you have to teach them?
A good question. Well, there's no magic here, but I try to be humble and try to make sure that even though if I teach and coach sales and communication, I do tons of mistakes, right? And I think it's being honest with them and try to be humble and say, I'm probably going to learn something from you throughout our, time together. The only thing I'm doing here is I'm sharing what works and what worked for others. Maybe something will stick, maybe some other things won't. But like I said at the beginning, you need to have an open mindset. You need to be open to learn something new. And I think for a client that doesn't know me, it's totally fair to, okay, what's this guy's going to teach me, right? I've been in sales for 25 years. It's totally fair, right? I understand that. But I think back to Tiger Woods or any athletes, I don't think Tiger Woods went up at one point and said to his coach, coach, I'm not going to practice anymore. I've won tons of tournaments and I'm very good now and I make millions. I'm just going to play tournaments. I'm not going to practice. I don't think Tiger Woods or any other athletes or any other business person, successful business person said that ever, right? There's always something you can learn. And And I'm working with this terrific system, right? I didn't invent the system, but it's a terrific system. And there's probably something in that entire system that will make a major impact on your business, on your result, even if you've been 25 years around, been in sales for so long. So, but I think it's a great question. I think it's being humble out of from the gate and make sure that I'm not the guru of sales, but everybody needs to learn or can learn something.
Yeah, and I think it's a great example of a Tiger Woods. The concept of continuous improvement.
Yeah.
Even though you're always Tiger Woods already winning all the tournaments, all the awards, top player in his field, he doesn't stop getting a coach. He doesn't stop looking for continuous ways to continually improve, and I think that's a real key. I mean, that's how I live my life too. I'm always like, I know I can always get better in everything. So if I can just get a little bit better in something every day and move the needle that much more, to me, that's a good day. So
Now
I
the
like
challenge, Robert, is what's your appetite for change, right? That's the big challenge. Just
yeah.
maybe you don't want to change. Maybe you're okay with that, and it's okay. Maybe you're going to retire in 3 years, and why bother?
I mean, I love change. I have always embraced change. I think change is inevitable, and anybody who doesn't feel that, I feel is in denial.
Yeah.
This world is just all about, life is about change. So yeah. I just look forward to change. I wake up in the morning, I'm like, I wonder what kind of change is going to happen today, and reflect back in it at the end of the day and like, wow, look at all that change that happened. So for better or for worse, right? It may be bad change, but it's always, nothing is static. Let's talk about performance ratios. So, I'm a fractional CMO. I'm all about KPIs and ratios. I like the data. What are the key metrics that you would typically look at to measure success and prove to the person who's hired you and made that investment in your training that you are, you can actually show, look, I'm improving your performance?
Yeah. Well, it's different for every people. They're not my KPIs. They're my clients' KPIs, and everybody's looking for different ways and the way they measure success. For most of them, maybe the most common ones are reducing sales cycles. Time kills deals, so they don't want sales in their pipeline to hang there forever. So reducing sales cycles is one of them. How many new appointments are they booking? How many new logos or any new appointments are they bringing in the company? So and if you want to dig a little deeper, maybe how many new appointments, first appointments, are they able to make in their agenda? That's a common one. But other than that, closing rates are important, right? Marketing team is attracting a lot of new leads, but how many are you closing? And closing a deal is maybe not the hardest part. It's make sure that they're closed at your own criteria. I mean, if you need to reduce your margins to close deals, I don't think there's something wrong in your way of closing business. So am I closing the business to my own conditions, or I need to leverage on everything? I need to bend my knee just to close some deals. So there's a lot of KPIs, but it's basically my clients' KPIs that we're trying to measure. And every month we're having an hour one-on-one meeting with my decision makers and make sure we're aligned and we're on track with the KPIs. It's rare. We never go off track because we try to make sure that we meet our goals every month. But yeah, the most popular ones are sales cycles, how many new appointments. And we'll try to focus on the leading indicators and not the lagging ones, but the leading indicators. How many phone calls are you doing? How many appointments are you setting? How many new logos are you attracting? So those are the major ones.
I'm curious if it's ever happened where you have an engagement, you walk in, and after spending a little bit of time with the sales team, you realize that there's nothing wrong with their systems, there's nothing wrong with their processes, their methodologies. The problem is the person that hired you. And that's the problem. You start hearing that in the room. How do you deal with that? I mean, that's a deeper issue that has to do with company leadership. Is that what do you do with that? Do you go back to the person who hired you and tell them, hey, I got bad news for you. You're the problem.
Yeah.
What do you do?
I unfortunately have to be honest with clients, and sometimes this is the type of conversation we're having, right? If your salespeople are not unthinked, they're not, they're not doing the behaviors they should do. The question is, did you hire them this way or you made them this way? So sometimes it's a tough question to ask. Let me tell you, Robert. But it's clarity. It's an alignment question, and sometimes leadership is a problem also, right? I'm talking with great CEOs, hiring great or promoting great salespeople to the role managers, but they're not good managers. They're just very good salespeople, but not good managers. Good people, they're all good people. And sometimes, like you said, the problem is the management. There's no leadership, or they don't want to. They think the way they've done business is the way everybody's gonna do business, and it's not the way it works. We need systems. We need to document systems, and this is the problem sometimes, that we'll find out the management is not. It's not good. It's the problem. Yeah. They're
So
tough
yeah,
conversations to have, let me tell you, but
I'm sure. I mean, people problems are always the toughest problems to have, and it must get pretty dicey
yeah.
when you're in that situation. How often does that happen, where you find that is actually the problem? It's not the sales team.
It's rarely the problem, but I would say management needs to have this openness as much as the sales team, right? They need to be open, and if management are not involved in the training, they're not going to be clients of mine. We need to have management involved. We need them to be in the room when we train their team. Management, VPs, and so if they're not in the room, it's hard to have sustainable growth and meet KPIs. But it's going to happen sometimes, once in a while, having those tough conversations with CEOs and management, and make sure that we're all aligned. And if you want to have a solid return on your investment, everybody needs to be aligned, sales team, but also management. So otherwise, I'm just burning your money. You're just burning money, and this is not a business case, or it's not a right strategy, anyways, for me long term.
So there's a lot of fractionals listening. I'm a fractional CMO. There's a lot of business leaders listening. Is there one thing that we should be asking ourselves right now, assuming that, maybe as a fractional, we're always struggling with, we always want to get the pipeline filled, but then we also want to always improve our closing rate. So is there one question we should ask ourselves that might help us start thinking about how we can improve that? And would that question be the same for a sales leader in a business, or is it different when we're talking about more solopreneurs, which is what most fractionals are, versus a sales team?
I think it's the same question for everybody. And you know what, Robert, sales is the engine, right? Without sales, nothing happens, right? So we need a strong sales team. You can develop the best product or service. If nobody can sell it, you're not going to exist. So I think the first question is, well, what problems am I solving with my product or service, right? Identify a few pains that a typical client has, and what is my product or service? What type of solutions am I bringing? Then maybe what's the buyer journey, right? What's my sales process? What's step one, step two, until they become a client? Through what process my buyer will go through, and then what's my philosophy within that process? Am I selling features and benefits? Am I trying to impress very early in the process, or I'm the good doctor and I just ask the right question? And until I don't see a fit, until I don't think my solution will solve any problems, there's no presentation. There's no, I'm not gonna prescribe anything, right? So they're basic questions that you can ask yourself as a solo entrepreneur, or maybe challenge your sales team, or as a CFO or CMO, right? Making sure that there's clarity between the vision and the team. So there's a lot of alignment question that can be asked, and make sure that we're all aligned and we all, talk the same vocabulary. That's really important in sales. Like I said, without sales, nothing happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think your point about alignment, especially between marketing and sales, and I think also you started the conversation that really starts with product also, right? Is there alignment between the product and the potential market, the customer, all right? Are we building a product that we know there are pain points that it will solve for? And then is the marketing team aligned with that? And then is the sales team aligned with marketing? And getting everybody swimming in the same direction, same messaging. And I think your point about understanding your buyer journey, that's one of the things that I do when I have an engagement during the audit process. One of the first things I'll do is do buyer interviews with a very prescribed formula from the Buyer Persona Institute, of a half-hour conversation with a buyer, and ask them, walk me through how you came to buy this product or service. Start with, what was the first thing that triggered you thinking about starting to look for it, all the way down to, why did you buy this one instead of that one? Or why did you buy the other one? Sometimes, I'll interview a buyer who bought the competitor's product and find out why. That's very valuable information as well. So that all makes sense. That all makes good sense.
Yeah, good point.
All right. Let me wrap this up with you and ask you the billboard question. If you could put one message on a billboard for millions of CEOs and business leaders to see every day as they drive by it on the highway of life, what would it say?
There's so many, but maybe one: stop selling features and benefits. People don't care. That would be something I would put on a billboard. It's provocative. So.
Stop selling features and benefits. People don't care.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be the one thing I would put on a billboard.
Yeah, there's a lot of marketing people out there who are possibly upset with that. What do you mean stop selling features and benefits? That's what we do. That's all we sell.
Well, sell solutions, right? Identify problems and sell solutions. Every good ad are identifying a solution first, right? Every good ad on TV, right? The lady that has a mop that doesn't work, or it's spilling all over. That's a pain. That's a problem they're having. Then after they're showing this new thing that they just invented, right? But I think first, people don't care about features and benefits. They do care at one point, but at the beginning, it's all about them. It's all about solving a problem. This is why people buy stuff. It's to solve problems.
Yeah, you're making me think of all those infomercials, and they always start off with illustrating somebody suffering through those pain points. And if the person who's watching connects with those, then they're going to keep watching, because it just brings them back and makes them relive it emotionally.
Exactly.
Like, oh my God, yeah, that's so annoying. And then 5 seconds later, well, good news, we got a solution for you. And I was like, oh, tell me, what is it? What is it? What do I call? And here's my credit card number. So
the conversation we just had before, people are buying emotionally. They make decisions emotionally. Yeah, that's me. The right word is emotion, right? They're trying to build up this emotion state, and they're presenting the solution after, and then they're justifying with whatever features, but usually the decision is made already.
I had a brief stint as a salesperson many, many years ago, and one of the best tips that I learned, read about, was that when you go in and see a prospect and ask them about how are things going with their current supplier, and there's always something that isn't going well, and they say, well, this could be better, and then say, well, tell me about that, and basically make them relive that pain point so they feel it. And once you've gotten them into that emotional state where they're feeling the pain right in front of you, that's a great time for you to kind of segue into, oh, that's interesting. Well, here's how we do it, and here's how we would kind of solve that pain point for you.
It's a great point. And if for people that are listening, I would invite you to go or type, I guess, in chat or Google the Sandler pain funnel. And it's exactly that, the pain funnel. It's about taking your surface pain. Tell me more about that and make it more emotional. And there's a few questions, and you go down that pain funnel to go from a rational conversation to an emotional. What's the impact of doing nothing? What's the impact of having, or is it important enough to consider something different? And that's exactly what you're saying. It's a nice concept, the pain funnel. So whoever wants to
learn more. Sandler pain funnel. It sounds like hours of fun.
It's fun. It is fun.
Pain funnel. All right. Weekend activity. Go check out the Sandler pain funnel.
Exactly.
All right. Max, merci beaucoup. Thank you so much for joining us.
Welcome. Thanks.
Here, we'll put all your contact info in the show notes for people to find out how to contact you if they want to. And merci beaucoup. Thanks again for joining us here on the Fractional Pros Canada podcast.
All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks, everybody.
That's a wrap on another episode of the Fractional Pros Canada podcast. If you're a fractional professional based in Canada, we'd love to have you join us in the Fractional Pros Canada Facebook group, the home for Canada's fractional community. It's where Canadian fractional executives connect, share insights, and help each other succeed. Until next time, I'm Robert Mendelson, Fractional CMO. May your impact be full-time, even if your hours are fractional.